Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza, getting over a little bit of a cold, but feeling better. And I've got a great guest with me for the whole show tonight. Matt Goldman started out as a comedian, opened up for the great Tom Arnold and lived to tell the story, ended up in Los Angeles and got involved with writing for TV. And now in the last several years, he has become a bona fide author. And he writes books about this vulnerable PI named Nels Shapiro. I'm going to read a little bit about Matt here from the Library Journal. It said, Emmy Award-winning writer Goldman, who began his career as a stand-up comedian, not surprisingly blends his storytelling with irreverent humor, his tough yet vulnerable PI, evocative Minneapolis settings, and clever plots, which features a distinctive crime scene and multiple red herrings, will both engage and intrigue. Matt, good to see you again.
Hey, nice to see you, Paul.
Now, you are formally a Minnesota resident again.
Yeah, I am back as of February 1st last year, so I've been here a little over a year.
Well, you came back just for the incredible winter we were having here in 2019.
Yeah, it's like the winter when I was a kid. Like, you see those giant snowbanks everywhere, and you know, I'm 56 years old, but I still think, like, I think I could make a fort in one of those.
A lot of my friends with kids have been doing that. Matt, give us a little background. You were on my television show, Wall of Power TV, which airs every Saturday night on Comcast Channel 6 at 8 and 11:30. For those of you that have Comcast, or you can stream from mcn6.org. And there we talked a little bit about your background. So tell us, how did you get into comedy?
I was a student at the University of Minnesota, and my junior year, some friends invited me to go see stand-up, which I had never seen before. Not live anyway, and I went and for some reason thought I should be doing that. So I did open mics at Scott Hansen's Comedy Gallery.
Sure.
And
11th and LaSalle.
Yeah, 11th and LaSalle above the restaurant JR.
Mm-hmm.
And worked with some great local comedians. And not long after that, I started getting hired to MC and open. And I really had a nice learning curve here in Minneapolis. And the more I was on stage, the more I felt like I liked the writing. That's what I really love. So a few years after that, I moved out to L.A., and things worked out.
So was that kind of in the mid-'80s?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, okay.
I think the first time I did stand-up was 83, and I moved to L.A. January of 87.
Well, see, I totally know that time because I met Tom Arnold, who became a very good friend of mine, and David Carr, the great, the late, great David Carr. We were the Three Musketeers there for a handful of years, but I got to know the comedy scene through Arnold because he was doing the Hanson's Place and the other places around town.
Yeah.
So, I mean, back then, let's talk about it. It was Liz Winstead.
Yeah, Liz was there.
Joe Keys,
definitely. I think it's Joe Keys' birthday. I just wished him happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Joe.
Yeah, and Sid Youngers.
Sid Youngers, yeah.
Joel Madison.
Yeah. Wild
Bill Bauer. I can't remember everybody, but it was great. And it was a great time and place to start doing stand-up.
It was really kind of a golden era.
Yeah, there was an early area with Louis and Gerbino,
right.
Scott, who did Mickey Finn's,
right.
And I wasn't around for that. But then there was that resurgence. I mean, there was just an explosion of comedy at that time, and
all over the country, not just Minneapolis.
And cable TV hadn't really taken off yet.
Right.
So if you wanted to see stand-up, you kind of had to go to a show. I mean, there was Letterman and there was Carson, but that was about it.
Right. Well, and then too, and you can speak more of this, but back then, 83, 84, you had comedians like Jay Leno coming through town, Jerry Seinfeld.
Well, that's how I met Jerry. I opened for him 10 shows in 1 week at the Comedy Gallery.
Wow.
And so we became friends and remained friends. And so when he got his show, he asked me to write on it, and that was my big break.
I was there the night Tom Arnold met Roseanne Barr.
I was there too that night, so we must have not been introduced to each other.
Right.
But yeah, I saw that whole thing happen.
Did you go? Did you get to the party at Tom's place after the show?
No,
at the legendary comedian's house across from the CC Club.
What did
26.
they call it? The Bohemian Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did not. I didn't go to those parties. Out of self-preservation.
I went to too many of them.
Yeah.
That house, geez, I think Sid Youngers lived there.
Don Foster.
Yeah.
Who's had a very successful writing career in L.A.
Yeah, and then, what was amazing about that house, they had coffee filters instead of toilet paper, and the one picture on the wall was actually a burnt pizza that they just nailed into the wall.
Yeah,
in the
I knew
room.
about the burnt pizza. Yeah, I'd been in there, but I avoided the late night party.
So Matt Goldman, my guest. So you get out to Los Angeles, and you had connections with like Jerry Seinfeld, and who else when you got to Los Angeles?
Some other comedians I'd met opening for here, like Bob Saget,
wow,
Dennis Miller, before he went way away to the right. Dennis was actually very nice to me and good to me.
And he was he used to be a really funny guy.
He used to be a very funny guy. Look at his Twitter feed. He's not so funny anymore.
Yeah.
And Roseanne, and then a bunch of Midwest comics,
right?
And they really are the ones who took me in out there. Louis, I knew, and I kind of found my feet that way.
I got to know Louis a little bit. My first gig in town when I moved in September 1978, I got a job as the ticket taker at Dudley Griggs on Seven Corners.
Yeah.
And so Louis would open some shows. Also saw Henny Youngman there.
Wow.
The great Paul Krasner.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Louis opened up for Paul Krasner. Krasner, of course, was one of the Chicago 8. Also was one of the founders of the Yippie Party, and put out a magazine called The Realist for years, and also used to be a roommate of Lenny Bruce's back in the day. Did you ever bump into Krasner over the years?
No.
Yeah, you know who he is, though, of course.
Yeah, of course I've heard of him.
Yeah. So what was your first writing gig?
I did some little writing gigs, but my first major primetime show was Seinfeld.
Wow, and
I was there at the beginning.
What was the episode?
Well, I wrote an episode called The Robbery. It's one where George is a real estate back then. They did a pilot without Elaine, and then NBC passed on it, and then they changed their mind. They said, we'll give you 4 more if you add a girl. And Larry and Jerry didn't want to do that, and they kind of hemmed and hawed and huffed and puffed and said, well, if we have to add a girl, we're going to write her like a guy, and that's how Elaine was created. And I came in then on those next 4, and I wrote one called The Robbery. It's one of those 4 episodes. George is a real estate agent. Jerry's apartment gets broken into. He's like, had it with that place. George says there's this other great place. He tried to convince Jerry to take it. And Elaine was invested in the story because she wanted Jerry's apartment.
Right. I remember the episode.
Invested because he had gone into Jerry's apartment to borrow a spatula and left the door open. That's why it got robbed. And then once George shows Jerry the apartment, he wants it too, and now so that's kind of that episode. Yeah.
So tell us, Matt Goldman, so how does the writing start? Are you working with other writers too, or are you coming up with a basic plot?
Well, it depends on the show.
Okay.
On that show, Larry and Jerry worked a lot by themselves. And so there was only one other writer there when I started. We would go in our offices and work on ideas, and then we'd pitch them to them, and we'd have meetings and things would get thrown back and forth, and we'd go our separate ways and write. So that's how it worked on that show. We'd all sit in the same room to write together after rewrites.
Okay.
After rehearsals, and we'd rewrite after rehearsals.
Now, I become a big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David. Is Larry David basically George Costanza?
Yes, and Larry David's exactly the guy you see on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Wow.
Everyone asks if I write it, and I can't because I have PTSD being around him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, was it kind of the end then of your stand-up career, or did you do any stand-up in Los Angeles?
No, I did it in Los Angeles. I got there in 87. I did it until 89. It was weird. Like, there were so many small little stand-up shows you could do because the way comedy was still on the boom then. Mm-hmm. And so one night shows for $100 or something around town. So I wrote during the day, kind of watched sitcoms and recorded them and deconstructed them and tried to teach myself how to write them. And you know, my day job was actually at night. It was doing stand-up. So I could eke out a living just going and telling jokes, and then I'd write all day.
So where were some of the gigs back? Did you get it to the Comedy Store? You ever?
Oh, yeah. I worked the store. For anyone who's been there, it's a really dark place. I'm talking energy-wise.
Right.
And I'd go there and I'd do sets, and Mitzi, the person who ran it, said, offered me a job working the door, which is the way to get in there, but I just didn't feel like the right thing for me.
Right.
So I said no to that. And but I did work the Improv in a place called the Comedy Magic Club down in Hermosa Beach. I worked quite a lot.
Wow. We've got Matt Goldman on, former community TV writer and a great author. He's got a new book out called Broken Ice with his hero PI, Nils Shapiro, and it happens to take place during the Minnesota State Hockey Tournament. More with Matt on the whole show in the Wall and Power Radio Hour.
I'm Nick Slavic, proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I've been a craftsman for 25 years. You'll not find someone who loves their job more than me. The process of painting your home could not be easier. Go to nickslavic.com, click on the button Paint My Walls or Paint My Cabinets. I'll personally be in contact with you to get an estimate, either in-home or a free virtual estimate. We move furniture, vacuum, sweep, dust, and put your home back the way we found it. We're not like other contractors.
Located just north of 50th in France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, they offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
I'm Connie Burek, co-host of Awakened Living Infusion radio show. Join Michelle Kitzmiller and I as we focus on all aspects of health, wellness, spirituality, and growth from a mind, body, spirit, emotion perspective. On the Awakened Living radio show, we will discuss stress, self-care, fear, happiness, beliefs, communication, joy, pain, trauma, and more. Join us for the Awakened Living Infusion radio show Saturdays at 10 a.m. Let us share with you ways to infuse vitality into life.
Hi, Matt McNeil for Rudy Luther Toyota. March is Auto Show Month at Rudy Luther. This means throughout the month, they'll have great auto show deals on all new Toyotas. My first Toyota love was the RAV4, and it's completely redesigned for 2019, and the new RAV4 Hybrid will be here soon. Remember, buy a new Toyota and get a $250 gift card, trade in a vehicle on a new Toyota, and get another $250 gift card. That means a total of $500 in savings. Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley, and online at rudyluthertoyota.com.
I'm Richard R.J. Escal, and this week on the Zero Hour, how our economic system shapes our families and our relationships. Where do we go with Medicare for all? And we'll have a first-person report on events in Venezuela. All this and more on the Zero Hour every Sunday night from 9 till midnight on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Seward Co-op, serving the community for nearly 45 years, invites you to shop their two convenient locations, both offering the strong commitment to local producers and healthy foods you've come to expect. Seward focuses on locally grown and raised products, fair trade, and environmental sustainability. Shop their selection of meats, artisan cheeses, and house-made baked goods. Find Seward at 2823 East Franklin Avenue or the Friendship Store on 38th Street and 3rd Avenue in Minneapolis. More at seward.coop.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guest in the studio for the whole show tonight, Matt Goldman, TV writer, Emmy Award-winning TV writer, and also an author who's written... Is it this your second book with Nell Shapiro, the PI?
It's the second one. There's 2 more in the series coming. The third comes out in June.
So let's go back to the first book and tell us about Nell Shapiro.
Yeah, he's his backstory is he was a cadet at the Minneapolis Police Academy, and his whole class right before they graduated was laid off, which really happened in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And everybody knew it was temporary. You know, in a few months they'd all be hired on as cops. But in my story, 2 cops, 2 of those cadets didn't go back.
And the name of the first book, Matt?
Gone to Dust.
Right. Great book. I loved it.
Oh, thanks, man.
You have a lot of references to the Twin Cities, several to my neighborhood, Northeast Minneapolis, where I think you said to get an apartment in Northeast Minneapolis, you need 2 forms of IDs and 3 tattoos or something.
Like that. Yeah, no, the books are very Minnesota, and I used to always say this when I speak, so much so that when it went out for foreign publication, Norway and Sweden passed because they said it was too Scandinavian. But I just found out Sweden is publishing Gone to Dust.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So, and Broken Ice just came out in France.
So, where was the genesis of the book and the Private Eye, the great Private Eye? Nell Shapiro, as conflicted as the rest of us. Did you wake up one day and said, I want to write a book about fictional Private Eye?
Well, no, it didn't happen that quickly. You know, I've worked in comedy forever, and, you know, the big question I get is, how do you go from writing TV comedy to murder mysteries?
Right.
And I always say, well, if you're as introverted as I am and spend 25 years in rooms full of writers pitching jokes at you all day, you want to kill some people.
Yeah.
So, but that...
Let me just jump in here for a minute because like we talked about in the first segment, I got to know all those comedians hanging out at with Arnold at his gigs, and back when he had the Amazing Goldfish Review. And
Tom was a great stand-up.
Oh yeah, he was phenomenal. And about as quick on his feet as anybody I've ever seen. And I used to pick him up. I used to see him. I'd get done with my gig. He'd get done with his gig. We'd always see each other at the Super America at 22nd and Lindell. And occasionally you'd see Prince there too.
Yeah, I know. He was around there because of Rudolph's.
Yeah. And so so I got to know Tom, and more than once I'd see him schlepping his little bag of goldfish with his one suit coat down to his gig at the bus stop, and I'd pick him up. And we got to be very good friends. We still are. But you were talking about Larry David earlier, where you still have stress syndrome from working with him. But I know comedians, you get them in the same room, man, it's like sharks circling something that's bloody.
Yeah, and it's in the spirit of comedy,
right?
Like it's not truly mean spirited. I mean, or I should say, it rarely is. But yeah, comedians in a room,
tough crowd.
Yeah, making each other laugh is it's fun, and it is blood sport.
Yeah.
It's, but I do miss that a little bit. When you're in a comedy writer's room, it's a little bit different in that most of the people in there are writers, not comedians, so they're not looking for the same kind of attention and validation of their persona.
Right.
But it's still like, anything goes. The things that are said in writers' rooms, 1% of 1% makes it onto TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine it has to be. There's a part of it that's got to be really exciting, especially if you're working in a room with some talented people, talented writers.
Yeah, and it's like music. You need to create an environment where ideas can come.
Right.
It's safe to fail, and you can push yourself, and let what happens happen.
Right.
And then you use the craft part of what you do to shape it into a TV show.
So then, how was the transition then to the Neil Shapiro and the crime novels?
Well, I was working in comedy, and the dramas got really great with The Sopranos and The Wire, and The Closer, and Breaking Bad, Mad Men. There's a long list of them, and they're still great. And it really changed Hollywood because all of a sudden TV drama was super cool,
right?
And it had always been like if you want to be the elite in Hollywood, you work in film.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't work in film, work in TV,
right?
But the movie business was going through its own problems where they were starting to do less character-driven projects, and when those other shows hit it big and were on the cover of magazines and that's all anyone was talking about, all the great talent from the movie world, TV's writers, producers, actors, flooded into TV.
Right.
And the dramas were cool. Like, it was a cool thing in Hollywood.
Right.
And then the executives in comedy thought, well, we want to be cool too.
Mm-hmm.
But, comedy is not cool.
Right.
It's really about the dorky side of us.
Right.
And so, to me, when they tried to make it cool, they made it less human, and I started to lose interest in working in it. So I thought, I'm going to work in drama. That's what I watch. And to do my homework, I started reading crime fiction, and I fell in love with it. Like that, I found something I did not expect to find.
Like Raymond Chandler? What
exactly, Raymond Chandler. But the thing I was looking for, which is like humanity, when you have a crime at the center of your story, when you have a dead body and clues coming along, your characters don't have to carry the whole weight of the story.
Right.
And it frees up some time for them just to be people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I read Chandler and his Philip Marlowe, who had this wry sense of observation about society and great one-liners, but in a serious, dark story, I thought, I think I want to try that. So that's what I did.
We have Matt Goldman on for the whole show tonight on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. So when did Neil Shapiro, when did he appear?
It was January of 2015.
Okay.
I was in my house in Minneapolis. I knew I was going to go back to L.A. in 4 months to work on a television show. Both of my kids had just gone back to their second semesters of college. It was 11 below out, and I just sat down and made it up. Should I tell you where the name came from after the last segment? Because it takes a minute.
Yeah, well, we got a minute 30.
Okay, well, I'm Jewish. I'm named after a Swedish immigrant. There's a long story behind that, but I wanted to do the same thing for Nils. But it's not so obvious with a name like Matt. So I'm thinking like Leaf Shapiro or Pear Shapiro, but I really like the name Nils Shapiro.
Right.
I just like the juxtaposition, and I Googled it, and I did not find a Nils Shapiro because of course I didn't. It's a joke name. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Who would name their kid that?
Right.
But last year he found me. So there is a real Nils Shapiro out there. He's 86 years old and lives in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Wow.
Except in the winter, he lives in South Florida, where he's a book reviewer. So, and not just online book reviewer, he writes in the local papers down there.
Well, my favorite Bob Dylan line from "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue": "Take what you've gathered from coincidence." Yeah.
Yeah, so he's actually become a friend on the phone and email at this point.
Wow.
So that's where the name came from.
We are going to talk about Matt Goldman's new book, Broken Ice. It takes place during a Minnesota State Hockey Championship, which is going on right now as we speak. Go Greenway. We'll be right back with Matt on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
The #1 source of the Twin Cities gay scene is All Digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Hi, Matt McNeil for Rudy Luther Toyota. Let me tell you about the best parts of buying a vehicle with Rudy Luther. First, their staff is wonderful, friendly, and always ready to help. Another is the Luther Advantage Card. With every new and used vehicle purchase, you'll get 3 years of 10 cents off per gallon of gas at holiday station stores, as well as discounted car washes. The Luther Advantage Card keeps you happy in your Rudy Luther vehicle. Find out more at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scott Shambot from Shambot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, get-you-out-of-pain-now dental office. We always offer a free exam and x-rays for new patients because we believe you shouldn't have to pay to find out what's wrong with your teeth. Call today. We're open early and late and Saturdays to fit your schedule. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get. Call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH or visit fixmyteeth.us.
I'm Connie Burek, co-host of Awakened Living Infusion radio show. Join Michelle Kitzmiller and I as we focus on all aspects of health, wellness, spirituality, and growth from a mind, body, spirit, emotion perspective. On the Awakened Living radio show, we will discuss stress, self-care, fear, happiness, beliefs, communication, joy, pain, trauma, and more. Join us for the Awakened Living Infusion radio show Saturdays at 10 a.m. Let us share with you ways to infuse vitality into life.
Hello, humans. This is me, Ellie Krug, with Ellie 2.0 Radio on Monday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m. This week, I'll talk about how a Truth and Reconciliation Commission worked to heal South Africa after the fall of apartheid. Then, the big interview will be with behavioral psychologist Dr. Kurt Nelson, where we'll talk about what makes for an idealist. I've got a vision of a better world where everyone has a place at the table. LE 2.0 Radio, engaging and real on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Seward Co-op, serving the community for nearly 45 years, invites you to shop their 2 convenient locations, both offering the strong commitment to local producers and healthy foods you've come to expect. Seward focuses on locally grown and raised products, fair trade, and environmental sustainability. Shop their selection of meats, artisan cheeses, and house-made baked goods. Find Seward at 2823 East Franklin Avenue or the Friendship Store on 38th Street and 3rd Avenue in Minneapolis. More at seward.coop.
With your AM 950 weather, this is Eric Nelson. Tonight will be cloudy with a low around 20. Tonight, increasing clouds with a low around 20 degrees. Sunday, 20% chance of rain before 1 p.m. with a high near 37, low around 25. Your Eat Local Minnesota's restaurant of the week is the Downtowner Woodfire Grill. The Downtowner is a perfect choice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. Experience their cozy fireside dining alongside their delicious food and extensive wine list. Check out the full menu at downtownerwoodfire.com.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guest for the whole show tonight, author Matt Goldman. Matt, tell the people out there in the Wall of Power Radio Hour listening audience a little bit about Gone to Dust, your first novel with private investigator Nils Shapiro.
Yeah, Gone to Dust starts when a woman is found murdered in her home in Edina. And there hasn't been a murder in Edina in a long time. So, and it's a unique crime scene. Her body and most of the house is covered in the dust and dirt from hundreds of vacuum cleaners. So, in that dust and dirt, there's so much hair and fiber and DNA. Like, the crime cannot be solved in the lab. It just can't be. And the Edina Police Department is stymied. And so they hire a consultant, and that's how I introduced Nils Shapiro into the series.
Well, what I loved about Gone to Dust was you could almost take that book and drive around Minneapolis, St. Paul, like the church where the funeral was.
Yeah.
Right? The different bars. And then you include some great Minnesota music references.
Yeah.
Slim Dunlap, I think, makes an appearance as a character.
Yeah, mentioned,
Yeah, mentioned as a character. And so that must have been fun for you, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would say the start of my creative journey in life happened in high school when I was in a band. It was a band called The Panic.
Okay.
That some of the members have gone on to have very big, successful careers.
Like who?
Like a guy named Jimmy Harry, who used to go by James Nazanou, who was in E. Brown and some other bands, and now he's a big songwriter, producer in L.A. He's producing stuff all over the world. He won a Grammy with Madonna for something.
Wow.
Matt Wilson was our drummer.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. And then his brother Dan played with us.
Yeah.
One summer, Matt had to go to a summer program at Cornell or something. I can't remember what he went to. And Dan played with us.
Dan's had a hell of a career as a songwriter.
Had a great career. And Matt's still a really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think they're doing some version with Matt's playing with John Munson.
Yeah, they got a harp orchestra.
Yeah,
something like that. Which I've heard recordings that are fantastic, and I'm trying to go see them play.
Well, I remember Trip Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's what they did right. Well, I think right when Dan left college, they did Trip Shakespeare.
Yeah,
that was Dan and Matt.
Yeah, like early
John.
90s, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
and they used to play at the reconfigured 400 bar.
Yes. Yeah, I love Trip Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And then Dan went on to do Semisonic.
Yeah.
But I was 15 years old, and I was playing at 7th Street Entry and at First Avenue. On
Doesn't get any cooler than that.
It wasn't any cooler. I'm riding around in a van with Curtis A. I don't know why. I still get excited when I see Curtis A.
You better have the windows open so you don't get any secondhand smoke from that dude.
I was the only member of the band who left to go to college, and I played bass, and they ended up, they auditioned bass players, but nobody fit, so the keyboardist just played my part. But they opened for U2.
Wow.
And they're at First Avenue.
So
anyway, the music is like, it's just a part of me.
Yeah.
I like being around the hipsters and Husker Du and the Replacements.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me.
Well,
the Suicide Commandos.
Oh, yeah.
Who were a big influence on me.
Well, you look back at that, and really it's where I started to come of age and started to play quite a bit with my band Cats Under the Stars before I went solo in 84. You look at the comedy scene and the music scene. For certain, the music scene in that period, there's got to be 5 or 6 books out right now about the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
Complicated
absolutely.
Fun by Sin Collins. There's Chris Reimersteiner's book on First Avenue covers a lot of that.
Yeah, our band, The Panic, is on there in the calendar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm in one of those calendars, too. Yeah, it's cool. A little piece of history for us, right, man? So what was the response to Gone to Dust?
It was great. It got nominated for a couple of really nice awards. The Seamus Award, which is the Private Eye Writers of America, and the Nero Award, which is Nero Wolfe is a fictitious private eye written by a guy named Rex Stout, like back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and it made the New York Times bestseller list, which was really nice, and actually got a lot more attention out of the state than in the state because it's so Minnesota. These books, I get asked a lot, like, does anybody outside of Minnesota get it?
Right.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because people like to learn about a new place or be brought to a new place as long as it feels authentic to them.
Well, the movie Fargo was pretty popular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies ever. But I don't go in that direction. I keep it more metropolitan, at least in this book. So, it got a big literary award in Texas and some great mention by other writers. Really nice.
I could barely put the book down when I have it. I'm only about halfway into your new book, Broken Ice, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But tell the people out there, how would you describe Neil Shapiro?
He's a guy who needs to work alone for the most part. one of the reasons he didn't go back to become a Minneapolis cop is he could kind of sense, even at a young age, like that kind of structure wasn't right for him. He's an intrinsically driven, motivated guy. He is not like the PI of the 1930s or 40s.
Right.
He doesn't get in fights, a couple of drinks, and he gets tired.
Right.
So he's a emotionally intelligent, or at least trying to be more an emotionally intelligent human being, like he's a modern man. And so his
and divorced.
He's divorced. His relationships with women are complicated, but it comes from a thoughtful place.
Yeah.
There's a lot about that in the first book because that crime can't be investigated in the lab. I look into Nils' personal life because he draws on his personal life to get an insight to human nature, to give him insight into his investigation. So, but he's a guy, and he's the comment I get is he's funny.
Yeah.
So,
well, Matt, one of my latest hobbies is listening to true crime podcasts.
Yeah, very, very popular.
And what do you think is about crime that is so intriguing?
Well, I think there's part of us that it's a little bit like comedy. Like Seinfeld, they say was a show about nothing, but I think it was about selfishness.
Yeah.
We all have the selfish impulses those characters have, but they act on it. That's why we watch it, and that's why it's funny. I think crime is similar in that we all have those impulses of anger or jealousy or wanting more than we have or whatever it is, but those people acted on it.
Right.
So you can see the consequences of it without having to do it.
Do you think when you're writing either Broken Ice or your first novel, Gone to Dust, you're a very well-read guy. Is there ever an instance, let's say a crime that you heard about or read about that might make a little bit into your plot?
The main crime, no. The third book, called The Shallows, which comes out this June, there are some real-world events that play in.
Okay.
I could not keep politics out of that book. It's just with everything that's going on.
And we'll talk a little bit about that in the last segment. But Broken Ice, the book that is out now, the state hockey tournament is on, and the crime takes place at the state hockey tournament. Give a little bit of the plot without giving anything away.
Yeah, it starts when it's the state high school hockey tournament, and in my not to be named year, Warroad is in the tournament.
Right.
And so the whole town is down for that.
Hometown of Henry Boucher.
Yeah. It's Hockey Town, USA.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. One of my favorite things about Warroad is no U.S. Olympic team has won a gold medal without a player from Warroad on its roster. And so two girls from Warroad disappear outside the X. Like they were with their group of friends and then they weren't. And the police are looking for them. And one of the girl's parents is more well-to-do and hires Nils to help find her. And it kind of goes from there.
Like I said, I'm only about 40 pages into it. Do you have any scenes at the St. Paul Hotel, one of my favorite bars in America?
There's a scene at the St. Paul Hotel, but not only up in a suite.
Okay.
I fictitiously named one of the suites the Harold Stassen Suite.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The man who ran for president every year since I was born until he died. So, are you a big hockey fan?
I am a casual hockey fan.
Okay.
I chose the high school hockey tournament because it's important to Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I wanted to... I think a sense of place is really important in fiction. And that's an important thing. And again, I'm not writing for Minnesotans. The books are published by Macmillan. They're available nationally and now internationally. But I want to be specific to place.
Right. Now, do you have your own website where people can find out more about you or have links to where they can order the book?
Yes, and when in town, I always recommend the bookstore Once Upon a Crime, an indie bookstore that's great. There's wonderful bookstores in this town.
Right.
Most have the book, and the Barnes and Nobles have it as well.
Right.
MattGoldman.com has some information on it, and then I have Facebook and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I got to ask you on a personal level. The last time you and I hung out for a little bit when you were on my TV show, you were single, you had a dog or two, and now you're married.
Now I had one dog, now I'm married and have two dogs.
Nice. What kind of dogs do you have?
All right, I got to say this properly. I have standard poodles, but they do not have poodle haircuts. I couldn't get caught up in the doodle craze, so I thought I'm going to get the original. There was a reason I wanted non-shedding dogs. I'm just not giving them those haircuts.
When I was a kid, I used to play guitar with a guy named Chuck Christensen. We had a little folk duo called Paul and Christian. We thought at 12 years old, 13 years old, we were the Simon and Garfunkel of the Iron Range. And Chuck's mom and dad had a poodle named Maurice.
Oh, I love that.
Of course. And she would, and you might think about this for one of your next novels. They had a plastic runner that went all through the house, and she would keep the original plastic that was on the couches and chairs until guests came over.
Yeah.
And she would always set the table the night before. But she was a lovely lady. Joyce Christensen and Wally, my grade school principal. We've got Matt Goldman on. He's got a great new book out called Broken Ice. His first book is called Gone to Dust. Track him down at mattgoldman.com. He's a Minnesotan. Once again, we're happy to have him back. And we're going to talk about some other stuff he's got in the works on the Wall of Power Radio Hour after these messages.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
It's Greek to Me has big news. They are now open for lunch, Tuesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's right, you asked and they listened. Enjoy lunch amongst their new marketplace. If you can't join them in-house, make sure to check out their delivery services and remember them for your home or office takeout and catering. Visit It's Greek to Me on the corner of Lake and Lyndale in Minneapolis at 626 West Lake Street in Minneapolis or at www.itsgreektomemn.com.
Moe's Tax Service on Ford Parkway in St. Paul has been preparing tax returns since 1971. They're one of the most successful independently owned tax services in the country with a diverse team of highly trained and screened tax preparation experts. Tax laws and forms are always changing, and you need someone who's a dedicated tax preparation professional. Visit www.mohstax.com. That's MOHS tax.com. Or give them a call, 612-721-2026. Moe's Tax Service. They work for you, not the IRS.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Catch New Beginnings with Freddie Bell, Saturdays at 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Get a floor that's 100% waterproof for life without sacrificing the style you want. The Home Depot has Pergo Outlast Plus laminate starting at just $279 a square foot. With 22 designer colors, Pergo Outlast Plus can fit any style in any room beautifully. And you can rest easy because it's waterproof. Get Pergo Outlast Plus starting at just $279 a square foot at the #1 Pergo waterproof laminate flooring retailer, The Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only. See warranty for details.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guest on the whole show tonight, I'm honored to have Matt Goldman, formerly a TV screenwriter, but now an author with his new book, Broken Ice. So, what did you have to do any research on the hockey culture in Minnesota, or did you do most of it from memory?
Well, I knew quite a bit of it, but I did do some research, especially about War Road. I spent a few days up there, and so there's real places in the book because the story does go up there at some point. But I did a little bit of research. But
does Lou Nanny make an appearance?
No, Lou Nanny did not make.
Damn!
I know. I really missed an opportunity.
Oh,
but yeah.
Well, it's really fun. You know, I grew up playing hockey myself. I didn't think I was that good, so I got out while the getting was good.
Yeah, same here.
Started playing guitar, but then when I look back, I was playing with, the Carlson brothers, John Harrington, who ended up on the 1980 Olympic team and still has a great hockey career. In fact, I was just reading something the other day. I think it was like for the Miracle on Ice, 1980, when we beat Russia in the Olympics. I think there was something like 12 to 15 Minnesota hockey players on that team.
Yes.
Have you met any of the hockey players over the years, and have they read your book?
I don't know if they've read my book.
Okay.
And I've met a couple just in passing. But I don't know if any of them have read the book. The book's not about hockey.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of hockey in there. There's a couple of games. Nils goes to a game at the X, and I describe it a little bit.
Right.
Because part of it's important to the story. But there's not a ton in there.
Right.
Yeah. But the culture of it's around.
Right. So let's talk about The Shallows, your next project that you're working on as we speak.
Yeah, no, that's actually done.
Oh, it is?
That is done. The hardcover for that will come out in June. The paperback for Broken Ice will come out April 30th, I think.
Great.
And that book, it starts at Christmas Lake out in Excelsior.
Sure.
Where a lawyer is found dead. He's tied to his own dock with a fishing stringer through his jaw. And there's a Michelle Bachmann-like character. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, now we're going to jump back a little bit to Broken Ice. You have this legendary musical superstar, Graham Itasca.
Yes. Graham Itasca is a legendary musician who's, not as at the caliber of Dylan, because no one's at the caliber of Dylan other than Dylan, but up there on the national and international scene. And he's only mentioned because he has a summer place back up around Bemidji.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but it does play into the plot.
Right by Lake Itasca.
Yes.
My mother graduated from Bemidji High School. I know the area well. Matt Goldman, so tell us, what is when you're writing these novels, what does your writing day look like?
Usually I'm up early, and by early I mean like I get up in the 4s or 5.
Are you kidding me?
No.
What time do you go to bed?
Well, at really embarrassing times like 9:30.
You are a boring dude.
No kidding. I'm so boring.
But productive.
I'm so boring. People ask me if my life is like Nils. I'm like, no. Much more interesting life than I.
Right.
I'm not out investigating crimes. I'm
right.
Sitting in a room writing. And like if I get up at that time of day, it's creatively my best time, and there's the least amount of distraction.
Right. So how long will you write all day long then?
Well, I'll usually write till about 11 a.m.
Okay.
And then I will I'll take a couple hours off. And usually by then I've achieved at least what I need to achieve that day.
Right.
And I'll put in another hour or two in the afternoon.
So are you playing music while you're doing this? Or you just...
Oh, do I listen to music?
Yeah.
when I write television, I can listen to anything.
Right.
Except blues for some reason, or anything where I can hear the lyrics too well. Like, I can't listen to Dylan when I write.
Right.
And for some reason, I can't listen to blues. But I can listen to the Ramones, like
fun,
anything. But when I write fiction, I either listen to nothing or classical. I can't. It just has to. I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah. I think because that voice is so. The books are told in the first person, and that voice is so in my head, I can't interrupt it too much.
Right. Well, I know when I was writing my book, Blue Guitar Highway, I think I wrote 500 pages, and the book turned out to be, I think it was 279 pages. So whether it's Broken Ice, Gone to Dust, or The Shallows, how much ends up on the cutting room floor?
About 10%.
Really?
I think because I worked in television, I learned brevity. And as a stand-up, for that matter.
Right.
It's all about getting to the point.
Right. Sculpting it.
And so I just didn't pick up that habit of overwriting. I can kind of feel when I'm doing that, and I just stop it. So there's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's the way I do it.
Can I ask you a personal question? How did you meet your wife?
Online.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's just like the Poodles. But we knew a bunch of people in common.
Okay.
So that helps.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I look forward to meeting her one of these days.
Yeah.
Take her out to a gig.
Yeah, I definitely will go to a gig. She loves the music.
So we've got just a little bit of time left with Matt Goldman. It's so fun to meet somebody that has made a living like you have for most of your adult life in a creative field. And you've done several creative fields, comedy, TV writing, and now to be a novelist that's making a living out of this. Got to feel great.
Yeah, it is. I love being a novelist. I love the people in that world.
Who are some of the cool people that you might not have met had you not written these books about Neil Shapiro?
Oh, boy. They're all book people.
Right.
So I don't know, like writers like Lawrence Block and Julia Alvarez. She and I were both like writers in residence at a hotel in Florida a few weeks ago. The Harlan Coben's, Lee Child, Megan Abbott, Laura Lippman's, all those people. Yeah, I've met so many people in Hollywood, but when I meet book people, I get terribly excited.
We got about 20, 30 seconds left. Do you think this is going to turn into a TV series starring the great Neil Shapiro?
It might. There's been some interest, and I'm talking to people about it, but I know that world well, so I'm not holding my breath.
Matt Goldman, thanks so much for being part of the Wall of Power Radio. I can't wait to finish Broken Ice.
Oh, great. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This show is produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brett Johnson, recorded in the basement of AM 950 Studios in Eden Prairie, which is neither Eden nor a prairie. Come out and see me play. My gig schedule is at paulmetza.com. You can also track down my records and books there as well. We are going on our 5th year on the air on AM 950, and we really appreciate you listening out there in the listening audience. If you have a business or an event and you would like to advertise on AM 950, we've got a really committed audience and a lot of cool people are going to hear about it. Just get a hold of Paul Metza via AM 950 Studios. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.